Hello. Thank you so much for joining me today. How you guys doing? Although you may regret joining me today. Because today I bring to you a tweet so egregious, so stupid, so annoying that I decided I'm just going to make an entire video about it. Obviously, when it comes to, what Europeans think about America, tipping culture is one of the sticking points, that's been around for many, many decades now, I suppose, that you guys rightfully give us shit for. And this tweet exemplifies why. And it exemplifies just how bad tipping culture has got here in America. Although I didn't know it was this bad, guys. Okay, maybe I'm hyping it up too much. You guys tell me. All I know is I got halfway through this tweet and I was like fuming. Let me just read it. All right, Paula says, she went to lunch with a European friend visiting San Francisco. We split the bill. It's $60 each. Apple Pay, $60 each? Each? Okay, my first time reading through this, I assumed it was $60 total. How the fuck did you spend $60 each for lunch? Okay. I guess because it's San Francisco. Welcome to San Francisco. $60 each for lunch. Apple Pay prompts 25%, 20%, and 15%. This is where the tweet gets really bad. Hoping he tips at least 20%. Hoping he tips. Hoping he tips at least 20% on his meal. Not hers. It's got nothing to do with her transaction. She's just there with him. And she's sweating bullets watching him with the iPad. Oh, please tip at least 20%. Not 15%. That would be embarrassing. He selects other. Which, I assume you guys know what the implication is there, right? So you've got these default options. 25%, which is just outrageous. Especially for lunch. 25%. 20%, which is normal now, although 15% used to be normal, and frankly, unless the service is good, I usually stick around 15. If it's good service, 20. But let me just tell you, that math goes out the window once we're dealing with numbers like $60 lunch. A 20% tip on a $60 lunch is $12. That's how much the lunch should cost by itself. At a certain point, in my humble opinion, no longer does the percentage tipping make any sense. Why would you tip this dude $12? Legitimately, the waiter doesn't need $12. He served you lunch, which probably ultimately, cumulatively took about 15 minutes of his time, and you're going to tip him $12 each. So $24. So he'd be making $100 an hour if everybody's tipping $12 for his 15 minutes of, taking your orders and bringing you food. It might not even be 15 minutes. Anyway, sorry. Let me finish the tweet. Hoping he tips at least 20%. I hope my European friend tips at least 20%. Who gives a shit what someone else tips? He selects other. I think, wow, okay, generous. He must be going way above 25%. He's just going to tip 100%. $60 tip. He tips $5. Oh my God, I need to tweet about this. $5. He only gave the waiter 5 of his hard-earned dollars. This tweet has 1.2 million views. It makes me sick. That's why I needed to make a video about it in a very tiny way, counteract a tiny portion of the impact of this tweet. This tweet is single-handedly, once again, making America look bad on the internet. Is this rage bait? You can see this person made $31 from their stupid tweet. And then just in case you were confused about, the implications here, don't worry, Paula followed it up. Is the implication that this is too low and therefore we should think something of your friend? Honestly, that's a fair question. It's like, I wouldn't be surprised if Europeans are like, what are you even talking about? Like, what? $5? Is that bad? The implication is that I was embarrassed And in my opinion, you should tip at least 20% after spending 2 hours somewhere with decent service. Why is that your opinion? Also, who cares about your opinion? Your opinion should impact your own tip. It doesn't impact how much other people tip. I don't care your opinion. It's my money. And you're so consumed, you've been so defeated and manipulated by American tipping culture that you're embarrassed that someone tips $5 for lunch? You're out of your mind. It's not your European's friend's job to tip a waiter more than 10% just because you have been choosing politicians that allow people not to make a decent minimum wage for years. Your country being shitty is not a tourist's fault. Okay, now, this is where things get a little bit complicated, to be honest. This is something that I feel like some Europeans don't fully understand, and it's that tipping culture here in America is beloved by the waiters and waitresses. They don't want to be paid a higher minimum or a higher hourly wage at the expense of their tips. It's not like they want $20 an hour and no tips. They make more than that from the tips. They make a lot of money. And I mean, that's cool, you know? That's cool. It's a job here in America that pretty much anyone can get. And if you do a good job at that job, you can make a good living. It's not an easy job. You know, you need to show up and be peppy and on your toes all day. But point is, it's being perpetuated by the waiters. They want the tips. And the minimum wage isn't even really relevant because waiters don't even make minimum wage. They make like a really tiny base hourly wage, like $2 an hour. It's some weird law to deal with all. But it's because they make so much money from tips. And then never even mind the fact that they don't pay taxes on their tips. The cash tips, I should say. Obviously, I mean, I guess that's an open secret. I'm sure it's that way in Europe, too, for a lot of people. You know, if they get paid in cash tips, 90% of the people earning cash tips don't declare it as income on their taxes. So they're not paying income tax on a huge amount of their income. So they love the tipping system. You know, waiters and waitresses don't want this shit changed. And I don't blame them. But that's besides the point. The point is, you should not feel pressured by anybody to tip any amount more than what you feel you should tip. Tip whatever you want. I mean, you should probably understand, and you probably already do know, that America has a high tipping culture. You know, a lot of people care about that stuff. A lot of people don't want to go into another country with a different culture and not understand how much to tip and what the norms are. But, you know, understand the norms and then make a decision for yourself to tip whatever the hell you want. No one outside of America understands your strange tipping culture that exists because you underpay workers in customer service roles. It's so much effort. Customer service roles. It's so much effort to constantly be trying to figure out who to tip and how much is appropriate. Honestly, even as an American, that's difficult to figure out. And it's because the people in the tipping cabal, these people who get paid by tips and the businesses who get subsidized work by people paying higher tips, keep expanding what you're supposed to tip on. And they try to pretend it's normal, especially with the advent of these like tap to pay, Apple Pay type iPads, where that's like the payment processor is just, it's done through this iPad, which has a touch screen on it. And so they just have this option basically behind the scenes. Do you want to turn on tipping? And, you know, every business at this point is basically just saying, yeah, why not? Why not turn on tipping? Maybe some stupid sucker will tip us. Who cares? You know, at the oil change place, you know, $100 for an oil change. Do you want to tip? Some people will be like, oh, am I supposed to tip? Okay, $10. It's just a way of extracting every last dime out of the customer. And it's kind of funny because it kind of feels like a balloon, you know what I mean? It's a bubble. And I think it's popping. At least for myself, honestly, I no longer even feel the pressure to tip. I don't care. I click no tip. If it's in a situation where I don't feel it would be normal in any way to tip, or I don't feel like I understand why I would tip, I don't tip. Or if I'm paying for something before the service is delivered, I don't tip. That's how it used to be, and that's how I'm doing it. And I don't feel bad. I don't feel any kind of way about it. I don't care. Tipping is only for when you've received a service and the service was good. That's it. And by that, I mean you personally received service for an extended period of time. A haircut, a waitress, getting a massage. Those are things you tip for. Not for going to the pizza place and picking up a pizza. You don't tip for that. It doesn't make any sense. But now they're trying to make it seem like you should tip for that here in America. No, you don't. And I can see how that's even more confusing for people who are just visiting. The few people that are visiting America right now. Here's a thought. You could improve efficiency. Why not just pay your workers a decent living salary and charge the correct amount for services? Well, see, if they charged more for the services, then they wouldn't be able to advertise these low prices. They love the fact that the tipping is a secret surcharge that doesn't have to go up on their signs and billboards and on their Facebook ads. It's kind of like sales tax in that way here in America. So that's why the businesses love it, because obviously they could just add 20% to all of their prices and it would be no difference. The customer would pay the same amount and then they could just pass that on to their employees, but then they'd have to advertise higher prices. Go to restaurant. Correctly assume the service is covered in the prices. Tip 0 because tipping shouldn't exist. Leave. Americans find such trivial things to get pissed about. It's a tourist. They probably didn't know about the R word. Can you say that word now? Now that Trump is elected? U.S. tip culture. Please take the remainder of what he should have tipped and shove it up your ass. See, this is the unfortunate thing because this is true. And that's why I'm making this video as an American to counteract this. Like, trust me, not all Americans think along this stupid line. In fact, the majority of Americans hate American tipping culture, especially the new tipping culture with the iPads and it's gonna ask you a few questions here. Apparently, she is European. That's weird. She's just lived here in America for so long that the tipping culture has consumed her soul. Sad. It's very sad. Okay. Wow, that was infuriating, but I feel better now that I got that off my chest. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.